What's up, sports fans? This is the NCAA College Sports Channel. It is time to give you the updated college football playoff outlook as we head into week number 10 of the 2025 college football season. So yes, we are heading into week 10. We are heading into the month of November. The first playoff rankings, of course, come out next Tuesday night, and that really does decide, and also that really is kind of win or go home at this point. And we do got some new eliminations. We got some new teams to eliminate for this week, and the eliminations are really starting to wind down here as we head into the final 4 weeks of the college football season. Some teams still have a pretty good shot to get in. Some teams maybe have to, win out to get to their conference championship and somehow get into that 12-team playoff field. But let's go ahead and get right into this playoff outlook video. We're going to go through the new eliminations for this week and then also take a look at the top contenders from each conference and then also the group of 5. So we'll start here with the teams that were already eliminated coming into the week, and we start here with the Conference USA, the MAC, and the Sun Belt. And like I said, for these 3 conferences, 2 losses will probably eliminate you from the college football playoff conversation. So every team has now been eliminated from the Conference USA, and the MAC, that's been, every team for quite a while. So you're not going to see a MAC and Conference USA team make a college football playoff appearance this year. I'm sorry, the resume just wouldn't be great enough this year. And then in the Sun Belt, we do have a lot of teams eliminated, but I'll talk about that a little bit here in just a moment. But let's now get to the other group of 5 conferences, the American and the Mountain West. So in the American, you have Charlotte, Army, FAU, Tulsa, UTSA, UAB, Rice, East Carolina, and Temple. And then in the Mountain West, you got Nevada, Air Force, Colorado State, San Jose State, and Wyoming. So we didn't have any eliminations from these 2 group of 5 conferences last week, but we do got some new teams to eliminate for this week. And then we go to the Power 4 teams. So in the ACC, you have Boston College, Clemson, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Stanford. The Big Ten, you got Purdue, UCLA, Wisconsin, Michigan State, Penn State, Rutgers, Maryland. The Big 12, just a couple of teams eliminated there. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. And then in the SEC, Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, South Carolina, Auburn, and Mississippi State. So like I said, for the ACC and the, Big Ten, or I should say the ACC and the SEC, those 2 conferences definitely do have a ton of parity, but I feel like in the SEC, I think 3 losses probably eliminate you. 4 losses for the ACC, and then in the Big Ten, probably 3 losses because that conference really just not really wide open enough. And then in the Big 12, 5 losses probably eliminate you since there's so much parity in that conference. So these Power 4 teams were already eliminated heading into this week. Let's now get to the new eliminations for this week. And before I start with those new eliminations, like I mentioned with the other group of 5 conferences, the Sun Belt, we still have one team that's alive in that conversation, and that is James Madison. James Madison, this team is still alive in the playoff conversation. They just have 1 loss, and that came, of course, to Louisville out of the ACC. That's their best loss of the season by far. Now, if James Madison loses another game, for the next 4 weeks, then they'll probably be out of the playoff conversation automatically because the resume would just not be good enough. And I looked at, the percentages, when I was watching the South Florida and Memphis game the other day on Saturday afternoon, they were in that conversation. They had a 9% chance, according to that percentage, to get into the playoff. Now, I don't know if they can make it in. I have really a lot of doubt that James Madison's going to make it in because the resume just would not be good enough. Except that loss, to Louisville is what's keeping him in that conversation. So if James Madison wins out, I don't think they make it in still. I just don't know if the resume would be good enough. So, yeah, James Madison, though, quick shout out to them. They're still alive in the Sun Belt, and if they went out the rest of the way, they could have a shot, but I just don't know if the resume would be good enough. So, again, James Madison still alive in this conversation. Let's now go to the new eliminations for the American and the Mountain West. And once again, we have no eliminations from the American. And we talked about that conference, the other day during my takeaways video on Sunday. There are 5 teams that are battling for that top spot in the American. The Mountain West, though, a couple of big shakeups here. You got Fresno State eliminated, and then you got New Mexico. These 2 teams just suffered their 3rd loss of the season. I don't see those 2 teams teams making it in. So, yeah, no eliminations from the American, but for the Mountain West, Fresno State and New Mexico, these two teams are both eliminated out of the playoff field. Let's now go to the Power 4 teams eliminated for Week 10. We got NC State, Colorado, Minnesota, Northwestern, Illinois, and LSU. So these teams right here, 6 of these teams are eliminated from the playoff conversation. NC State, I don't know if they can win out, go 8-4, and possibly make it into the ACC championship. That would just be impossible to do. Colorado definitely has no shot. They just lost their 5th game. Minnesota, Northwestern, Illinois, technically they could still battle for like a spot in the Big Ten, but I don't know if I see these 3 teams having a possible shot, and especially Illinois. That's kind of a big surprise there. You know, a lot of people expected Illinois to be a playoff team, and you know, I don't know if I remember putting them in the playoff conversation in my preseason predictions or not. And then LSU is definitely the big surprise. They lost to Texas A&M pretty badly on Saturday night. I just think this LSU team, the way they're playing this year, I don't know if they can win out and possibly somehow get in as a 9-3 team. The resume would just not be good enough. Now, probably what keeps them maybe in that conversation is the losses that they have. I mean, 3 losses to like good teams like in the top 15, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, and then you got the other loss came to Texas A&M. So yeah, LSU could probably still win out, but the way this team is playing, I just think this is a pretty bad football team. So LSU is eliminated from a playoff spot for 2025. So these are the new teams eliminated from the Power 4. Let's now get to the top contenders from each conference. We start with the ACC. Not the same thing, but you got Virginia, Miami, Georgia Tech, and Louisville, the true ACC teams. Again, Notre Dame's been in here ever since their second loss, the Texas A&M. They've been pretty much in this conversation ever since we started this series. And like I said, for Notre Dame, they have to win out in order to make the college football playoff, in order to get in as an at-large team. I definitely think the committee definitely would, get a lot of criticism if they kept a 2-loss Notre Dame team out of the playoff, because the couple losses that they have, they're to 2 really good teams, Miami and Texas A&M. That would definitely be enough for Notre Dame to get in. And they also have a win over Boise State, a Group of 5 team that's really good. And then they also have a win over USC. If USC continues to be good, I think Notre Dame makes it in. Now, if they lose a 3rd game, then they're probably going to be out of the playoff conversation. Virginia is still undefeated in conference play. Same thing with Georgia Tech. I'm going to keep Miami and Louisville in here for right now, but there are several teams behind these 2 other teams, and Miami and Louisville behind them. You got Duke in that conversation. You still got SMU. I think SMU is just fine after losing to Wake Forest. Then you also got like maybe another team in there that's in this conversation. So yeah, the ACC really could get interesting here down the stretch here in the final 4 weeks of the season. Let's go to the Big Ten now. It stays the same here in the Big Ten. We saw Ohio State did not play this past weekend, but they're technically still the best team in the Big Ten. You got Oregon that survived against Wisconsin. It was not a great game. Dante Moore went down with the injury, but I think he's going to be just fine. And then Indiana. I think this Indiana team is probably the best team in the country. Boy, they just blew out UCLA. I mean, they're just annihilating teams. And, they beat Oregon already, so they would have the head-to-head victory if Oregon were to win out. And I did mention this last week. We could have a lot of tiebreakers if, maybe Ohio State and Oregon probably were to lose a game, in their final games of the season. Who would get to the Big Ten championship? That would definitely be a huge tiebreaker there. But, yeah, these 3 teams, they continue to separate themselves in the Big Ten. But, again, not too far behind them as other Big Ten teams that could somehow get back into that conversation. You got Minnesota. I mean, I know they went down, but I think that was actually maybe their second conference loss. Nebraska, USC are probably still technically alive in that conversation, and maybe Washington. Washington probably has a chance as well. So yeah, the Big Ten could probably shake up here in the next few weeks, and don't count out, of course, Michigan. They seem to like they are kind of getting things figured out. So yeah, these top contenders are the top contenders in the Big Ten. And then we go to the Big 12. Texas Tech, BYU, Cincinnati, and Houston. Really, the entire Big 12 could be on here if I had to put all these teams on here, but these 4 teams probably sitting at the top of the Big 12. I mean, we saw Houston beat Arizona State on the road. I was still kind of blown away by that game. Houston pretty much dominated that game. And look, I know the score was kind of closer at the end, but still, if you watch that entire game, the Cougars dominated. Texas Tech, they took care of business. Texas Tech still has a pretty good shot to get in. BYU continues to prove me wrong. I'm not sure if BYU plays this weekend, but Cincinnati and BYU, I talked about it in the takeaways video. I feel like these 2 teams are probably going to slip up sometime, somewhere on the schedule pretty soon. It just could be this weekend, or it could be like the next weekend, or it may be never. I mean, maybe these 2 teams win out and they get to the Big 12 championship as unbeaten teams in the conference, but I don't know if I see them winning out and possibly going undefeated in the Big 12, because it is just a tough conference to go undefeated in. But these 4 teams, I think they're definitely sitting at the top of the Big 12, but don't count out the rest of the Big 12 except those bottom teams. Those bottom teams don't have a chance, but some of these mid-tier teams, they still have a pretty good shot to get to the Big 12 championship. Then we go to the SEC, and I mentioned these 9 teams in the takeaways video as well. All 9 of these teams have a pretty good shot to make the college football playoff. Alabama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, and Tennessee. These 9 teams all have a pretty good shot. Alabama and Texas A&M looking like the SEC championship game right now. I think if Georgia wins out, they are automatically in, even if they don't make it to the SEC championship. Vanderbilt's got a pretty good shot. Texas, I mean, you kind of question them. Vanderbilt and Texas actually will go at it this weekend. And I also mentioned in the takeaways video, not all these teams are going to make the college football playoff. Some of them are going to lose a game. They might lose their 2nd or 3rd game of the season, and that's probably what's going to keep them out of the playoff. And head-to-head does matter. And yeah, Ole Miss has a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. You got Oklahoma with a pretty tough schedule, and they haven't lost to Texas, so that probably is what's going to cost them here in the playoff. Missouri, the injury to Bo Birbila could cost them, the rest of the way. And then Tennessee, if they go 10-2, they can probably make it as an at-large team. So again, all 9 of these teams, while they all have a pretty good shot here to make the playoff, some of them are going to lose a game somewhere down the stretch. And then we go to the group of 5 contenders. We got South Florida, Tulane, UNLV, Navy, Memphis, San Diego State, Boise State, and Hawaii. And I think we need to kind of start talking about Hawaii. This has been a pretty big surprise team in the Mountain West. Navy's kind of been a big surprise in the American, even though they kind of, had a pretty good year last year. But, Navy, they're undefeated. They're at the top of the American. Now, the problem is, though, if Navy goes undefeated the rest of the way and they win the American Championship, is their resume going to be good enough to get into the college football playoff? I don't know if it will be, because I feel like Tulane might be the better team. And what if a Mountain West team jumps ahead of a Navy team that just won an American Championship? What if Boise State wins the Mountain West Championship and they do get in? I mean, it could be a lot of chaos. It's going to be really tough for the committee to really choose one of these group of 5 contenders to make it into the playoff. But, Memphis beating South Florida, that definitely kind of shakes things up for South Florida. It's going to be really tough for them the next few weeks to kind of, win out. Memphis probably has to lose a game down the stretch, and then Navy probably has to lose 2 games down the stretch. But yeah, Tulane is also in that conversation. UNLV is technically not out of it. Their resume is not really good enough, though. And then we'd have to really start talking about San Diego State. This is not a pretty bad team either. So yeah, the group of 5 is really starting to heat up here down the stretch as we head into the final 4 weeks of the season. But that is the updated playoff outlook heading into week 10. Give me your thoughts on the updated playoff outlook, and who do you think should have been eliminated for this week? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on the NCAA College Sports YouTube channel.